every dollar of revenue we were generating from selling our return service ended up costing us $3. Contribution margin was like negative 200%. You know, some of the stuff got a little bit of traction, but we didn't feel like it was big enough because we were running at a loss. And the turning point for us was
Zack. I had the pleasure of meeting you through Justin Overdorf at Lightspeed in 2022 for your Series A. At the time, I had a tiny and mighty $5 million fund. It was super lucky to support you. Seel was, I think, a few years old at that time, maybe minimal revenue. And since then, sitting here today, end of 2025, you are growing like a weed, 8 figures in revenue, pending 9. It will let you speak to that. But take me all the way back to like the founding of Seel. What were you doing prior and why did you start this company? And then, of course, I want to talk about the evolution, but like, give me the scoop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, I was my only job before starting Seel was a software engineer. I was at a company that built a lot of cool computer vision models, and they sold signals to insurance companies, hedge funds. So got familiar with the idea of algorithmic underwriting. So the concept of using algorithms to measure risk that is not possible with actuarial tables or more traditional methods. So, we started with the thesis of, looking for new categories of risk that, we can build models around, but we weren't sure. We had general ideas around like, okay, this probably would be a field with a lot of data, probably is a field where, does not have a lot of, existing players, something that was impossible before, but we weren't sure what specifically the market would be. So yeah, we started looking we built a lot of POCs for, Uber drivers. We tried to underwrite Uber drivers' income. We tried to, underwrite, hardware problems, using data. Some of the stuff got a little bit of traction, but we didn't feel like it was big enough. And the turning point for us was actually in 2021. One of the marketplace founders, they built a really cool apparel marketplace, and essentially we started talking about the problem of e-commerce returns and refunds and how folks intrinsically understand every payment doesn't have the same risk of chargeback. And therefore, people built models to try to prevent chargebacks. Mm-hmm. And return is like, merchants spend 17% of the GMV on returns and refunds, another 8% on post-purchase OpEx. So the whole thing is 25%. It's return is a 50x bigger problem than chargeback. So, why wouldn't you build, models to try to predict it and, reduce the number of returns, just like merchants reduce the number of chargebacks with algorithms. But at the time, nobody was looking at, how to use pre-purchase behavior data to predict returns. So I think we were the first one to do it. So we started with that technical edge. We started underwriting a single return reason for a single product category. Acquired sort of an initial set of merchant customers and helped fine-tune the model, improve the product over time.
Well, this is pre-LLMs, and I'm assuming this was a lot of trial and error because you're trying to also be a student to like user behavior.
Yeah.
So like, I think any insights into maybe a few key things that you realize, like that you're willing to share that like basically can nearly guarantee if someone's going to return something or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually pretty fascinating. Our V1 of the algorithm was definitely pre-LLM, and it was a really hard thing to do. We essentially deployed a JavaScript pixel in the front end. And then, that pixel collects a whole bunch of information around, HTMLs, click and scrolls, and, product information. So, at first, every dollar of revenue we were generating from selling our return service, we ended up costing us $3 to service between returns, refunds, and support. And yeah, it was just trial and error. Like one of the first very interesting signals that we picked up early was whether or not there's a human model in the picture apparently had an impact on apparel's return rate. So that was very surprising. And we found that out by essentially just running a clustering algorithm. And that was definitely pre-LM. So first version of that, we actually just, used a open source GitHub repo to tag human, faces within product images. So that was very basic. And post LLM, actually, a lot of the sort of vertical optimization we're doing ended up, getting outperformed by LLM models off the shelf. Yeah. So we actually sort of went back to redo a bunch of the pre-processing work around signaling.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. When did you officially start the company?
I think we incorporated in early 2020, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it took a little bit, right? Like
Absolutely.
iterating and like, yeah, maybe walk me through quickly that journey of like, so the initial idea is like, how do we like create more predictability with the underwriting? But then it's evolved so much from then. So you're not like you're in an insurance business, which
Absolutely.
It could sound like that.
Like now there's the concept of AI enabled service, but back then we didn't have like clear terms to articulate it. Our service is essentially, how I think about the business is, within the returns and refund program, there's a lot of companies that sell tools to help merchants manage their in-house operations. What we were doing is we were selling service directly. We were taking over the post-purchase shopper relationship, and we answer questions, directly. We manage, tracking directly. We manage returns directly. We eat the cost of refunds. So we were operating an actual service that is a direct comp to merchants, in-house return policy, augment their in-house return policy, rather than selling tools that, help them build, in-house programs directly. A lot of that work is just service. So we were selling service, but the service we were selling is quite different from, more traditional services in that the underlying cost structure is quite different. Because we operate, the return program for thousands of brands and marketplaces, we get to build really vertical specific applications that probably doesn't make sense from an LTV to CAC perspective outside of, like, if we were to sell those tools as standalone SaaS products. A good example is live support around orders and product concierge. So, one thing we noticed was two of the very common questions we would get is, something like, is there a different variant of a product? So like, is there a blue version of this white t-shirt? And then the other category was, how many more days do I have to return something? And actually, all of those questions are answered in merchants FAQ and, all the online contact. But, most shoppers just, folks don't want to do the work of going to actually check it. So one of the first things we built around support was we built a browsing agent that just looks at all of the public information that the merchant already posted online. But when a shopper asks that question in our, post-purchase resolution center, we can answer that question directly as opposed to pointing them to a different URL. And that did two things. One is the shoppers were really happy because it was, live instant support, much faster than, waiting for a human agent to do checks and stuff and get back to you in 5 minutes. You ask a question, is there a blue version of this t-shirt? And then the browsing agent does 2 seconds of browsing and get back to you. Yes. And how many of those t-shirts are left? Like how many days you have to return something. So that was a great experience for shoppers. And also for merchants, they really liked it because it's a lot of tickets that they don't have to handle in-house. Yeah. But if we were to go to market with that standalone, product and say, how much are you willing to pay us for, answering your shopper's question more directly, folks probably willing to pay like $10-$20 a month. Yeah. And that would just never pay for the cost of initial acquisition. Which,
by the way, there are probably 100 right now trying to fundraise for this single idea, which is like the customer support for merchants. Yeah. So and walk me through the evolution. So your relationships with merchants and even their size, like were you always enterprise focused, or was there sort of this like, must be on Shopify, SMB mid-market for iteration? Like how has that evolved? Because you've had so much success like upstream recently, but was that always the case?
No, absolutely not. The company has grown, our volume has grown over 40x over the last 2 years. And that's driven by both the move from SMB to enterprise and also the expansion of the share of orders within each account. When we first started, as I mentioned, like we were underwriting a single return reason for a single product category. So we just couldn't serve a lot of the merchant categories. Yeah. So SMB really helped us, sort of build the initial data set to fine tune the model before, we could go to enterprise. One, like we haven't learned the types of features that enterprise specifically care about. And two, we, even if an enterprise merchant's doing, $1 billion in GMV came to us in 2021, we probably wouldn't dare take it because we were, running at a loss. Like our contribution margin was like negative 200%. So we didn't have the product that's ready for enterprise. And that started to change about 2 years ago. So the product got ready, the training data improved. We iterated on the algorithm. It got really, really good. So we felt comfortable approaching enterprises. And also we had enough case studies across different types of merchants that gave us the right to work with ever bigger accounts.
Yeah. So it seems like, was it 2023 that was a bigger year for you?
That was
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you had gone from like 0 revenue to I think 8 figures or something.
Yeah.
Was that largely enterprise or was that a mix?
I think in 23, the actual live merchants were still predominantly SMB.
Yeah.
It took us about a year to get the enterprise motion to really going. Because we didn't have a lot of salespeople. We had 2 AEs for the longest time. So I had to learn how to do sales. And I was an engineer before. So
I was going to ask you that. I remember when you were raising the Series B and Lightspeed led that, but you were like, yeah, we got feedback that it's just like still founder-led sales.
Yeah.
Because it's so funny because like for the first few years, if you do have a sales team and it's too early, you're going to get feedback that you should be doing founder-led sales.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I always liked understanding a problem before hiring a team to automate that. There's nothing wrong with the other approach. It's just like, I feel like in critical areas, like when a company didn't have product market fit, delegating away the responsibility of finding product market fit felt very uneasy. Like my mindset was always, if we screw this up, it's, at least I would know that I did my personal best and didn't try to be lazy or anything like that. And bet on somebody else to figure it out. The whole like pre-product market fit, I think finding product market fit was the only thing that mattered. So I wanted to be, the deepest in that particular field. And then post product market fit, we really needed to figure out, how to sell to the enterprise market, because the SMB business, the LTV to CAC just wasn't making sense. Mm-hmm. Like it was really valuable from a data accumulation perspective, but we would probably never be profitable in the SMB sector with the economics we had back then. So we knew we had to figure out enterprise sales.
Yeah. If you started this company January of this year with no knowledge of it, so obviously no scar tissue, but with the latest and greatest of all things, like all LLMs, like, do you think it would still take you some time to build a super defensible product? Like, is this something that you think required a 2 to 3 year build time to get right? Or do you think now with all the tools that like it would be different if you started this year?
Yeah, I think it'll always be faster to build with new technology. Like even, if, we started in 2021, but we, for example, had the benefit of a lot of people really have already like computer vision on image tagging was very much a solved problem back then. It was open source models could very easily identify faces in images, even pre-LLM, and that would not be possible pre-2015. So it's always as new infrastructure gets better, it's always easy to build the same product. I'm the first time founder, so the first 3 years I made a ton of mistake in terms of like just not having the right mindset. I think looking back, I really should have had the experimentation mindset earlier and not be attached to a single idea. Like this stuff before we entered e-commerce, like a bunch of the stuff that we tried that took, a year and a half to 2 years for us to realize there wasn't product market fit. If I were to do it now, that, there are tasks we can do that probably can shorten that to a month.
Yes.
So I definitely wasted a bunch of time on that front. So I think it would be faster to build today, both from like, having more experience and also newer tech.
Today, what is the offering if I'm an enterprise merchant? What am I buying from you? What does it do for me?
Really easy way to think about us is we're an extension of your in-house return policy. We think of as like trash to treasure approach. We're happy to take the shoppers, the products, the return reason that your in-house return policy doesn't want to deal with. For one reason, for financial or like OpEx reason or the other. And then we want to, operate side by side with your in-house program, show the conversion lift, show the, cost saving that we can deliver. And then hopefully, you would give us a bigger share of your products and, shoppers and return reasons for us to service over time.
Is it easy for you or for your customers to see ROI quickly? Like, are you integrated with their systems to see tangible savings? Like sometimes that's hard, the paper trail of like showing ROI super quickly, or is that a pretty easy set of data points for you to collect?
So 2 things. One is I think it's definitely very easy for merchants to collect. We have 2 value props. One comes from the pre-purchase conversion lift, and the second comes from the cost saving. Like Seel is almost like a mini Prime program. So one interesting stat is the D2C merchants on average spend about 4 times as much to acquire new shoppers compared to Amazon seller. Because shoppers on Amazon don't even think about who the seller is because the return policy is guaranteed by Prime. But 2 out of 3 shoppers, before they buy from a new brand, they would check the return policy of that brand before buying for the first time. And the way they do that is scroll to the bottom of the page, click return policy, and read a whole bunch of tags to see, do I have 30 days or 7 days? Do I pay return shipping or not, et cetera. And that is a lot of friction. If a shopper sees, the Seal return policy badge on one merchant and then see us again on a second merchant, they don't have to scroll to the bottom of the page and click return policy and do all of that stuff again. So, it's less friction to convert first-time shoppers. So we, lift the conversion and AOV quite a bit. So that one is really easy to measure. I would say most enterprise merchants have A/B test infrastructure in place, and you can pretty much measure that in a single week. On the cost side, it's a little more difficult because there's the financial, there's the operational, maybe it comes from return reasons, maybe it comes from, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. I would say the bigger brands and marketplaces that we work with that have that internal infrastructure can also calculate it, but we don't always have that data. It's like very often the merchant knows what the ROI is, but we may not have access to that. So it's harder for us to get a hold of that data.
Yeah. Looking forward, talk to me about just team. I think you guys are growing pretty quickly at this point. So right now you're 15 plus people, maybe hit 100 by the end of next year. Given sort of the trajectory now, what do you want the team to look like? Is everyone here in San Francisco? By the way, they're probably hiring. So if there's any huge jobs that you're looking for people that are open right now, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. We're pretty much across the board. Go to market, we're hiring, marketing, sales, revenue operations, and, product managers, software engineers across all roles.
You've done a pretty tremendous job with a small team, right? You've gotten to high 8 figures with how many people? 15?
I think San Francisco now has about 30 people.
30 or something.
We do have, we do have, offices outside of US as well. We have, APAC office, Europe office. But a lot of we try to, retain the core team to focus on the most important work. And then, sort of the more, commodity services and development, we would try to outsource as much as possible. Because I think the ability of a small team to build is pretty profound.
Yeah. Do you ever think you'll need to be 1,000-person company to take this thing public and be huge?
To hit IPO ready revenue, I don't think so. I don't think we would need that many because we're approaching 100 million in AR pretty soon, and the number for IPO, a lot of people talk about in the 200 to 400 range. So don't see a reason for us to get to that many
too
people.
Big and burn too crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like you're one of the few companies that probably gets feedback that you're not spending enough money, but the revenue is just increasing. So
Absolutely.
That's a great place to be. Going backwards a little bit, maybe for any potential customers that are listening, who is the ideal customer for you so that they know to reach out? Yeah,
no, we love to work with, merchant of any size. So we have thousands of merchants today, from brands to marketplaces, from mom and pop shop on Shopify to multinational marketplaces doing 7 billion, 8 billion GMV. We service pretty much any non-perishable, non-virtual product categories. So it's now really broad.
Last question. Do you have a hot take on where you think the future, let's say even the next year or two, of e-commerce is headed? You're on the forefront of building these agents, you're working with all these merchants, you're seeing the spend. I think you had this data point that the average consumer is buying from 39 different brands a year. Does that number become larger? Does it become smaller? Any sort of noteworthy things that you think might be something you have to build towards, even as a business? Yeah,
so I think there's a lot of excitement around the agentic shopping experience. So a AI agent buys things for you. We are sort of on the minority side of thinking that it probably wouldn't completely replace the current paradigm of humans shopping for clothes. And the reasons are twofold. One is I think humans are fundamentally very visual shoppers, especially when it comes to categories like apparel, phones, electronics, things that are more personal. We've seen e-commerce go from, pretty much zero and stabilize around 50-60% of commerce now in US over the last almost 30 years. But it's not 100% of shopping. A lot of the shopping still happens offline. And then you look at mobile. Mobile has, since iPhone got released in 2008, like mobile is now also 50-60% of e-commerce GMV. So, there's a lot of paradigm shift that made shopping more convenient, but they all sort of stopped at around 50-60%. Because I think humans are fundamentally visual animals. 3D shopping offline is, it's more cumbersome than shopping from your desktop. But then 3D is better than 2D. 2D is better than, 2D on smaller screen. So if I'm a betting man, I think, the agentic shopping experience, the optimal UI is probably not going to be chat. Like saying, hey, can you buy me a blue t-shirt? Probably suffices for, someone like me that buys every clothes from Amazon mostly. But that won't do for folks that care about the products that they feel are personal. Agentic shopping will be very convenient for household items, and like toilet papers, it makes all the sense in the world. Buying golf balls makes all the sense in the world. But I think chat is probably not the right interface for things like apparel, electronics, and the more personal mainstream items. It will definitely play a role, but it's hard for me to imagine folks saying, I want a cashmere jacket that is black on the outside and red on the inside.
And a gap. No, I agree with that. As a shopper, I'm like, this should be way better, but it's not.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting about Seel. And if anyone is looking for an amazing job in the Bay Area, or I guess you've got other offices as well, definitely look at their website, seel.com, and reach out to Zack. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.